About team comps. There's generally three types of team comps. There is rush comps, where you play Lucio and a Reinhardt, or the general goal is to get really close to the enemy team and run people over. And then there is poke comps, which is what you're seeing most right now, right? Where you set up somewhere around the corner, like Philly's doing right now, and you spam the enemy team out. You play for your Orisa pulls, because Orisa is a mandatory character in poke, and you try to farm ults and win off ults. It's a little bit of a slower composition. And then free, you have dive comps, which you don't really see right now unless you're on a map like Gibraltar. But that's generally like a hit and run style, right? Where you try to force a lot of duels and you try to like jump on people and blow them up and then get out again. What's the best comp at the moment? Probably like something that Fusion is playing right now, especially on this patch with the Genji armor packs and the Ashe and Orisa, because they're all really strong. Especially Brig is OP. But it really map dependent, right? You can't say, hey, because you picked that comp, you ought to win. Eternal kind of giving up the point after they have capped it, because they know, hey, Fusion is playing a poke comp. They're going to poke us down. They're going to sit there. They're going to chill. They don't really need to walk in deep for them to win the fight. So then Paris says, hey, okay, let's just go off the point then where they can't really poke us. Let's dodge Sato's pool, because that's one thing that's really dangerous. And then once they get on point, we have Maywall and we can go in, right? And that's why oftentimes on this Fusion comp, you see the Genji swap to a Mei, so that you can counter wall the enemy Mei wall. And I'm not sure if we'll see that this series, but it could be something that's really good to do if Eternal was playing a lot of Rush or EQO to go Mei. The thing about the Eternal comp is they're best when they can just sit on point and let the enemy team walk into them. But now they obviously need to go to point to let the enemy team walk into them, or go straight into the enemy team, which is also pretty damn hard. Philly's holding on point, and I think they're holding on point because they know, hey, if we hold here close, then Soon can just put a TP from here to the window, right? So they're holding on point, so they have to have Eternal walk into them. Oh, interesting. Both teams are now playing the Symmetric comp. So this is interesting, because I think the reason why so many teams play Rush on Garden, and most teams that I've seen now play Garden have played Rush, is because this bridge is mega annoying to have to play on. This is like super bad to play on. Like, you really don't want to play here. You want to play around this area, right? I'll give this a check mark. Same for the other sides, right? But if you don't have Lucio, then you're gonna be on that bridge, because if the enemy team is playing Lucio and you're not playing Lucio, they will be here, right where the circle is now, and you will be on the bridge, and it will be hard for you to walk into the enemy team before you really get out of the danger zone. So the only solution for spam to avoid this, right, if you're playing into these rush comps, is to go White Room. But that's very awkward, because if you look at White Room, then this is also a really bad choke to come out of, right? Like, if you walk through here onto the point, which you're gonna have to, this is a really easy wall spot for the enemy Mei. So, conclusion, Rush is really good on this map, because otherwise there's so many good wall spots. You can't get out in the open without getting stuck on the bridge if you don't have Lucio. And if you have to pick Lucio with spam, you're not playing a good spam comp. I feel like the comp that Eternal's playing oftentimes isn't even that big of a dive comp. It's oftentimes more of a brawl comp, because they still have the Brig, so they still need to make use of that AoE healing. So positioning like this is actually really good with Brig, because everybody gets that Inspire healing. They also just get the Ana healing, right? Playing it like Winston Goats. I think, yes, you can kind of play this like Winston Goats, where you still kind of want to stack up and go in together, because otherwise the enemy team is just going to out-sustain you, because their Brig is proccing passive. That's a tongue twister, and your Brig is not. Rally is hard to use in dive, I feel. I don't think so. I think you make sure that you like go in very hard with your Winston pop rally. Make sure you brawl. And against dive, it's even easier to use, right? Their Winston jumps in, you rally, and you walk into him. I think it's all about your positioning before the fight. As Brig, good usage of the high ground by Eternal, and it's pretty hard to retake once the enemy team is this high ground, right? And this is why dive's pretty good, because that's actually a comp that can soft dive high grounds, etc. I think Philly here in this case though, they might just want to not like fight for this as hard. They might want to try and get the cart set up and make the enemy team drop. How do you get value out of Brig in this scenario from a turnip? That's a very good question. I think Brig, generally with this last patch, right, still have the armor patch here. You armor pack your flankers, right? So you armor pack Sparkle a lot. Sparkle plays really aggressive. And you make sure that you position yourself in a way where you can get your Inspire passive up, right? So let's say you are FD God here. It's a pretty hard point for him, but he crosses over into here, right? Maybe with his Winston. And then once his Winston dives in, he walks up. He goes for like 1 or 2 swings to make sure his Inspire passive's up. He keeps fighting. And just generally like focusing on the enemy tracer and making sure you get your Inspire passive up is like the way you get value out of Brig. It's definitely a lot harder on the Eternal side to get your Inspire passive up than it is for the Fusion side. But with armor packs, it's still doable. In the current meta, you don't get as much value anymore. I feel like the biggest thing for dive from Brig was the armor packs. So the armor packs being gone is like such a big deal. So against poke, I feel like dive is just not that great anymore. I feel like dive got nerfed big time with the armor pack nerf. Because it's really hard to get your Inspire passive up sometimes. What do you run as dive backline right now? Maybe you still run Brig. You probably still run Brig because Brig is like still really good at like healing tanks, etc. And if you get your Inspire passive up, she's still really good. But maybe you just run Mercy and poke at your Genji. But then you might as well play poke, right? Like I just feel like dive is a little bit dead with the Brig nerfs. I feel like Philly's being pretty passive right here. They capped the first point, and they had some time to set up, but they're all just kind of holding low ground. I guess Fury's on a little bit of an off angle right here, but I feel like it's a little bit awkward, because now what's going to happen is Bembest is going to walk up here. He's going to be able to pull everybody, because everybody's stacked, right? And they're just going to Sigma ult, and maybe they're just going to McCree ult. So I'm pretty scared here for Philly. I feel like they should not be this stacked, especially when the enemy team has Sigma ult. So we'll see what happens. Oh, but Paris actually backs off really hard. I think they could have taken that fight. Right? If they walk up here, they push the people off the high ground. That's great. The cart is still over here. Can't you just go really hard, walk over here, take the fight? Normally Eternal would do this, but they're pretty passive in this situation. There's no ults to really counter. Eternal end up backing up, which I'm not really a fan of. I think this doorway especially, it's hard to push through. And also, Eternal have an ult advantage, so why not just Sigma ult quick, you know, before Fusion can really farm any ults. Unsure. Fusion decide to go over here, which it's pretty good on them because Ashe has less damage fall off than McCree, right? So the Kree playing up here won't do much damage to these shields because of the damage fall off. Meanwhile, Carpe is over here off angling. And as we've seen, Sparkle hasn't really gone on flankers as much. He's mostly gone for the core of the enemy team. So Carpe can play pretty aggressive. Now more rotation comes in from Philly, which is why I really didn't like earlier that they were playing so passive, but I guess Paris kind of gave everything up. Bembest now dropped. I really don't like this drop, because now it's going to be free for Philly to just walk. I feel like they'll just let Sparkle 1v1 EQO, and they all stay on the high ground, and they hold here. Maybe they don't have a good corner there, which is what they're scared of, right? Because if you put a drone over here somewhere, it won't be that great. You can get shot. So I kind of get why they dropped. Still, I feel like you could drone here and it'd be out of LOS. Also, you can get a good shield advantage there too. There's decide to have Bembest drop, which kind of gives up the high ground for them completely. Oh, Hanbin gets pull rock too. Yeah, they all have to drop now. Bembest bongos. But that's in a position where you can kind of shoot it as well. Oh, but now they pull Sigma. Okay, it only gets one though. It seems like a weird sequence of play for both teams. I feel like Eternal misplayed that really hard. XZ starts kind of popping off. I feel like there were several misplays there we can go over. And of course it's really hard in a 6-map series so far, right, to play everything perfectly. But oof. So I think first of all, if you have an ult advantage, maybe you can posture more aggressively to where the enemy team is playing. Either they could push off this high ground. I feel like that's really the only line of play you can do. Because if you go here with your team, then the enemy team is just going to rotate and take the high ground, which is kind of what happened now, but it took a little while longer. But Eternal play is very passive. They don't really make any plays, even though they have an ult advantage. And then Philly just push the card, push the card, push the card. I really feel like this drop from Bembest is such an error, right? Because I still feel like you could hold up here, be okay, spam their shield, right? You're probably going to have 2 shields from your Orisa shield already being there into their 1 shield. They might have a decent corner, but still, this is such a hard choke to play from. And also, they need to kind of look closer or kind of hold closer because their McCree has less effective range, right? It gives away all the high ground, and I think that sets them up for this fight loss. And they already let the card push so far that it's going to be hard for him to make a retake even, right? Because they didn't take that early fight. They let the cart basically push for free all the way from here to here. But yeah, I don't like this split here from Eternal. And I also feel like they don't realize that they're playing Kree, so they need to play more aggressive. They're playing like they have a Widow, maybe. What is the advantage of having McCree over Ashe? I mean, I think Ashe is actually better in the mirror here. But I do feel like Eternal values being comfortable on characters you play a lot more than a lot of other teams. So XZ being on Kree here isn't so much to say as, hey, we think Kree's better. It's probably because XZ thinks, hey, I've been doing better on Kree than Ashe and Widow. Because he's been getting shut down really hard on Widow all throughout the series by EQO. So he's probably playing Kree because he was planning to play Widow, but then he was getting shut down on Widow. So he went back to another comfortable pick. Is what I'm thinking there. But obviously, the advantages are you're better in the close fight, you do a little bit more shield damage, and you can stun the enemy Genji when they're blading. While Ashe is better in the poke fight, the neutral fight, or ult's a little bit better, and Dynamite's really good.